I never believed in the stories about the Siltwood Forest until the night I set my campfire under its trees. Everyone in town called it different names: Dead Man's Timber, the Whisper Mile, the Vanishing Pines. But the legend was always the same. Once a year, on a cold night when the sky was completely clear and the moon looked a little too small, a fire would appear on its own somewhere among the trees, burning without wood, without smoke, and if you followed it, you wouldn't come back the same. As a kid, I thought that was just something adults made up so we wouldn't sneak into the forest to drink. And as I grew older, I decided if there was anything scary in there, it was the wild boars and the occasional drunk hunter. So when my friend Milo challenged me to spend one full night alone near the heart of Siltwood and stream parts of it for our tiny horror podcast, I laughed and agreed immediately. We'd done haunted houses, abandoned motels, ruined factories. Nothing ever happened. The most we ever caught was an owl flying too close to the camera. Honestly, I thought Siltwood would be the same. A creepy vibe, some good audio for the show, maybe a couple of jokes about ghosts around a campfire, then home with a story about how stupid the myth was. I started walking just after sunset, following the old logging road, a backpack over my shoulders, my phone on 90% battery, a power bank, a small tripod for the camera, and a bundle of dry wood I'd bought from a gas station. The air got colder as I moved away from the last orange street light, and the trees swallowed the remaining light quickly, their trunks packed tight like bars of a cage. No birds, no bugs, nothing, just the crunch of my boots and the occasional snap of a branch underfoot. After maybe 40 minutes, I reached the point my grandfather had always called the last safe tree. A crooked pine marked with a rusty horseshoe nailed into its bark. He used to tell me, "Don't ever step past that horseshoe at night. You might come back, but you won't be alone." That memory drifted through my mind like smoke as I ran my fingers over the cold metal. It felt rough, eaten by rust. When I checked my GPS, the signal flickered once and then steadied. I told the stream, "All right, this is it, the famous last safe tree. According to local superstition, beyond this point, your grandpa's ghost charges you rent. Let's go see if he wants to be on camera." My chat bar at the bottom of the screen filled with a few laughing emojis from the three people watching: Milo, our mutual friend Kay, and some random username I didn't recognize. The road thinned to a narrow path marked with the pale bones of old tire ruts, barely visible in the dim light. Eventually the path gave way completely to raw forest floor, littered with needles, dark leaves, and stumps. I walked until my GPS told me I was near the center of Siltwood. That's where the legend said the phantom fire liked to appear. Finding a relatively flat area between 4 tall pines, I dropped my backpack, set up the tripod, and panned my phone slowly around the clearing. The camera struggled with the low light, turning the trees into blurred pillars. "Here's where I'm camping tonight," I said. "If any glowing-eyed forest demons want to sign a release form, now's the time." No response, obviously. I set some rocks in a loose circle, piled my store-bought logs and some collected twigs into a teepee shape, and flicked the lighter. It took a moment, but eventually the flames caught and began to climb, orange light licking upwards, pushing the darkness back just enough to make the forest look even deeper. Shadows stretched between the trees, long and thin, shifting every time the fire popped. I angled the camera so both the flames and the surrounding woods were in frame. Then I sat on my rolled sleeping bag, opened a thermos of coffee, and started talking into the mic about the history of Siltwood, at least in the pieces I remembered. Hunters finding empty tents with warm ashes still in the fire pit. Hikers hearing music on windless nights. A search party that followed a distant glow and found no fire, just a ring of stones and a blackened patch of dirt that was still hot. While I talked, the forest stayed quiet. Too quiet. Even the crackling of the fire seemed muted, like the trees were absorbing the sound. After about an hour, the chat died down. Milo sent a final, "Dude, if you see anything move, zoom in. Don't be a coward," and logged off. Kay was already gone. Only the random username Emberwatcher remained, dropping the occasional dot in the chat every couple of minutes as if to say, "I'm still here." At first I thought it was some bot. I joked, "Shout out to our mysterious lurker. If you're a ghost, don't break my phone. It's on payments." No reply, just another single dot. Eventually my phone battery dipped to 40%, and I stopped streaming, saving power for the rest of the night. After turning the screen off, the clearing felt different, like I'd closed a window, and the forest had stepped closer. Everything was darker, except the fire, which danced a little stronger now that the air had cooled more. I fed it another log, watched the sparks swirl up into the black canopy. That's when I first noticed it, the feeling that I was not alone. Now, I know people say that a lot when they try to sound dramatic, but this wasn't just nerves. It was physical, a pressure on my skin, like static. The hairs on my arms lifted. It felt as though the forest had exhaled and something had woken up, and that something had just turned its attention toward me. I listened closely. Nothing. Not a single leaf moved. The fire popped softly, sending a tiny shard of glowing ember onto the dirt, where it faded away. "You're fine," I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. "You're alone. It's just a story." But the sensation of being watched wouldn't go. Instead, it focused, as if coming from one direction. I found myself staring at a particular tree a few meters away, a thick trunk slightly wider than the others, bark peeling in long strips. The shadows around it seemed denser. The firelight didn't quite reach behind it, leaving a vertical wedge of pure black. My brain kept insisting something was standing there, just out of sight, pressed against the far side of the trunk and peering around at me. I shook my head, laughing nervously. "Classic horror brain," I said aloud, reaching for my phone again. The lock screen glowed, and for a split second, I saw a reflection of the clearing in the glass. The fire, the ring of trees, my own silhouette, and there, behind me in that same direction, two small pale glints, like animal eyes, too high off the ground. I spun around. Nothing, just the tree. My heart pounded harder than I wanted to admit. "All right," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I started recording again, this time just locally. "We may be experiencing what scientists call the oh shit. I'm an idiot alone in a haunted forest effect." I zoomed in on the tree. On camera, the bark looked normal, but the dark sliver behind it still seemed unnaturally black. "If anyone is watching this later," I went on, "take a look and see if you spot anything I don't." Maybe my subconscious picked up on something. I lowered the phone, and that was when I heard it. A faint crack from the left, like a weight shifting on a branch. Not animal-like, but careful. Measured. I angled the phone that way, my other hand feeling around for the flashlight. The darkness beyond the fire's reach swallowed everything. My beam was weak, washed out. But I swept it across the trunks anyway, left to right. Nothing moved. The beam caught something reflective at ground level. Just a discarded glass bottle, half buried in leaves. I let out a slow breath, feeling stupid for how fast my pulse was racing. To calm myself, I decided to check the time. When I tapped the screen, my phone flickered, then showed 23:17. "Almost midnight," I murmured. Then I noticed the signal bars. No service. That was expected this deep, but what wasn't expected was the small notification at the top. Livestream ended, 02:13:49. Over 2 hours of streaming. That wasn't right. I'd started around 9 and stopped a little after 10. I frowned, scrolling through the saved file, and the timeline showed nearly 2 hours and 14 minutes of footage. I scrubbed through quickly, thumb dragging along the bar. The first hour looked exactly how I remembered. Me walking, setting up camp, telling the story of Siltwood. But right after the point where I announced I was ending the stream, the video kept going. The camera stayed pointed at the campfire. I watched my recorded self stand up, yawning, and walk toward the edge of the clearing. That definitely hadn't happened. In reality, I'd stayed put, feeding the fire, talking to chat. Yet on the video, I watched myself vanish into the dark. The fire remained in frame, crackling quietly. About 20 seconds later, a shape moved at the very edge of the light. A tall, thin silhouette, half obscured by the trunk of that same tree I'd been staring at. It leaned forward, just enough for the glow to catch a slick, pale face, with eyes reflecting like coins at the bottom of a well. Then the recording glitched, one smear of digital noise, and cut off. "What the hell?" I whispered. I knew memory could be unreliable, but not like this. I was certain I had never walked away from the fire. Yet here, clear as day, was footage of me doing exactly that. And something else, watching patiently. Before I could process it any further, a notification jumped onto the screen. It shouldn't have been possible with no service, but it was there, plain and simple. From Ember Watcher. Message: "Don't follow it this time." A cold weight settled in my stomach. My thumb hovered over the notification. No name, no number, no app listed. Just the text, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I blinked once, and the message vanished, leaving no trace in any inbox or chat log. I checked everything. Nothing. My hands were shaking. The fire suddenly felt too small, too fragile. I tossed another log on, watching the flames climb higher, as if more light could somehow erase the strangeness. But the fire didn't burn the way it should. The new wood caught instantly. No crackle, no smoke, just a clean orange rise, as if it had been burning for hours already. I stepped closer and realized the log from earlier, the one I knew I'd just placed, was almost completely charred, as though time had sped up for it and nothing else. I grabbed a stick and poked it, and the whole structure collapsed inward, in a shower of embers, exposing a ring of blackened stones underneath that I hadn't arranged. Someone else had built a fire here long before me, the exact same spot. The idea that I was sitting in the footprint of someone else's forgotten night made the air feel thinner. I looked around the clearing again, searching for any sign of old camps, a rusted can, a scrap of tarp, anything. That's when I saw the mark on one of the trees, about at eye level. At first, I thought it was just a knot, but when I moved closer, I saw it was carved. 3 short vertical lines, with a longer line slashing through them, like 4 tally marks. The bark around it was darkened, as if burned by something hot pressed against it for a long time. I swept my flashlight around and found the same symbol on another tree, then another. 4 trees surrounding the clearing, each with 4 slashes. 16 marks total. I counted them twice. 16. It felt like a number meant to mean something. 16 nights. 16 fires. 16 people. "Stop it," I muttered, but the back of my neck prickled as though unseen fingers were hovering just above the skin. The sensation drew my attention back to the tree near the edge of the firelight, the one that made my instincts scream. As I watched, the darkness behind it seemed to bend slightly, like heat haze over asphalt. Even though the air was cold, the space thickened, shadows stretching, and for a heartbeat I saw something tall and narrow there, a vertical smear of black, darker than the night itself, with 2 pale, coin-bright eyes hanging in the void. Then I blinked, and it was gone again. I tried to rationalize. Sleep deprivation, too much caffeine, suggestibility from all the stories. But then, from somewhere deeper in the forest, I heard it. The crackle and pop of another campfire. Faint, but unmistakable. Not thunder, not branches, not trucks on a faraway road, fire. And beneath that sound, just barely audible, a voice, or multiple voices, talking, laughing. For a second I thought Milo had followed me to prank me. "Very funny," I shouted into the trees. "You almost got me. Come out before I throw this camera at you." The voices didn't answer. They kept going, low and indistinct, like a conversation heard through a wall. I grabbed my flashlight and took a few steps toward the sound, then stopped. The notification from Ember Watcher echoed in my mind. Don't follow it this time. This time. As if I'd done it before. As if I'd already made that mistake. I turned back toward my fire. It was burning lower, almost too low. If I stayed here, it would eventually die out, leaving me in pitch blackness. If I went toward the other fire, maybe I'd find people, safety. Or maybe I'd walk straight into something that had been planning this all along. My heart hammered against my ribs. I decided to compromise. I'd move just close enough to see, not leave the radius of my own light completely. I stepped backward, keeping my eyes on the dark between the trees where the second fire's glow flickered faintly orange. But as I did, something strange happened. The distance between my fire and the other one never changed. It remained the same small patch of flickering gold in the distance, no matter how many steps I took. I kept walking, the crunch of leaves under my boots, my own fire shrinking behind me, the new one staying stubbornly far ahead. At some point, the ground beneath my feet turned softer, like I was stepping on ash instead of dirt. I looked down and saw charred black earth, scattered with half-burned logs, rusted cans, and the collapsed remnants of tents. I'd walked into a graveyard of old campsites, dozens of them, all in varying states of decay. Some circles of stones were nearly swallowed by moss. Others looked like they'd been used last week. But the second fire remained ahead, not any closer. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I spun around, intending to go back to my own camp. But behind me, where my fire should have been, there was nothing. Just more trees, more empty rinks of stone, more blackened soil. My throat tightened. I turned in a frantic circle, trying to find some familiar landmark. The crooked pine, the well of darkness behind the particular tree, anything. The forest looked the same in every direction, a maze of trunks and shadows. My flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied. On impulse, I checked my phone again. The time read 23:17. Exactly. The same as before. I blinked, locked it, unlocked it. 23:17. No seconds ticking forward. Battery 40%. Signal none. And at the bottom of the screen beneath the icons a new line of text glowed faintly, as if burned into the display. Live 00:00:03. I stared as the numbers ticked up 4, 5, 6. My phone thought it was live streaming again, even though no app was open. I swiped frantically, but every screen slid away to reveal the same thing, the word live and the timer counting upward. Then the audio on the phone crackled faintly, even though the speaker message was at minimum volume. Underneath the static, I heard my own voice. Not delayed, not echoing, but saying something completely different from what I was saying now. If you're hearing this, the other me whispered, that means you didn't listen. You followed the fire again. I brought the phone closer to my ear. The recorded version of my voice sounded strained, terrified, like someone speaking from underwater. It doesn't burn wood, it said. It burns time. Nights stacked on nights, people stacked on people. We keep walking in over and over, and we always think it's the first time. But it isn't. It's never the first time. A rustle behind me made me whirl around, heart in my throat. Between two trees I saw movement. Someone stepping forward, holding a lantern. My breath caught in relief. It was a woman, maybe in her 40s, dressed in an old-style hiking jacket, hair tied back with a faded scarf. Thank God, I started lowering the phone. I got turned around. Do you know? She raised a hand, signaling for silence, eyes wide with a warning. Don't get too close, she said softly. Her voice shook. You're still on your side. My side, I repeated. What does that even mean? She swallowed, looking past me, her gaze fixed on something over my shoulder. How many fires did you see on your way in? She asked. Just mine, I said. And maybe another one. I'm not sure. I heard it. I saw the light. She nodded grimly. Then you're still early. You still think there's a way back. My skin crawled. Who are you? I was you, she said simply. 3 years ago, or 3 nights. It's hard to tell here. Time doesn't behave. We came out here for a show, too, for a video, for a dare. My friend went first. I followed the fire to find her. She gestured with the lantern toward the dark behind me. No, I can't leave that circle. Not completely. That's where it keeps me. I didn't want to turn around, but I had to. Slowly, I pivoted. Behind me, an orange glow pulsed faintly through the trees, larger than a single campfire, more like several small ones scattered together. Shadows moved around it, shapes, people. For a second it looked like a normal campground, tents, figures walking, someone sitting, someone lying down, but then the image blurred, stretched, like seeing a reflection on rippling water. I looked back at the woman, heart racing. What happens if I go there? I asked. You meet the others, she said. The ones who stayed. The ones who followed the sound, the ones who forgot they were in a story and started believing they were real. This is insane, I muttered. You're not real. Does it feel real? She snapped, a flicker of anger breaking through her fear. The ash under your boots, the cold in your fingers, the way your mouth tastes like smoke, the way every time you try to remember how long you've been here, it slips away. I tried to remember when I'd left the house, what song had been playing on the car radio, what I'd eaten for breakfast that morning. The images refused to line up, like puzzle pieces from different boxes. My head throbbed. Why me? I asked. Why anyone? Because we light the fire, she said. That's the invitation. This place is hungry, but it can't start on its own. It needs a spark. Once the campfire is burning, the forest can feed. A snapping sound came from behind her, deep in the dark. Her eyes widened. It hurt me, she whispered. I stayed too long. I just wanted to see if anyone made it further than I did. She stepped back, and I saw for the first time that her lantern wasn't casting light normally. The glow formed a perfect circle at her feet, but outside that circle the darkness looked thicker, almost solid, pressing down on her shoulders like a weight. Her face flickered, as if seen through an old TV with bad reception. Listen, she said quickly. You're not at the start of your night. You're somewhere in the middle. It keeps cutting out the parts where you almost figure it out. It resets you to the campfire. That's why your clock doesn't move. That's why your stream kept going after you stopped. You keep walking away, over and over, and it keeps stitching those nights together. 16 marks on the trees. 16 versions of you, maybe more. I thought of the carved tally marks, of the graves of old camps. Why send me that message? I blurted. The one on my phone? Don't follow it this time. Was that you? She shook her head slowly. No, she said. That was you. One of the other yous. It doesn't just eat people. It eats the parts of them that still fight back. Sometimes the leftovers leak through. Her lantern dimmed suddenly, the flame inside sputtering without smoke. A wind I couldn't feel rustled her hair. It's coming, she whispered hoarsely. You have one chance left. Don't trust the light. Any of it. Put the fire out. Snuff it completely. If it can't see the spark, it can't anchor you here. How do I get back? I demanded. How do I leave the forest? She looked at me with something like pity. You don't walk out, she said. You'll remember your way out. With that, she stepped backward, and the darkness folded around her like curtains closing. The lantern's glow shrank, collapsed into a point, and then vanished altogether, leaving me alone in the cold, shallow beam of my flashlight. My breath steamed in front of me. I listened, straining for any trace of her. Footsteps, rustling, anything. Instead, I heard the sound of the distant fire swell, gaining volume like someone was turning a dial. The low murmur of voices rose again, weaving around each other, laughing, sobbing, screaming, whispering all at once. The forest ahead of me pulsed with an orange glow that seemed to beat like a slow, heavy heart. Don't trust the light, she'd said. Put the fire out. As if in response, my own phone screen lit up by itself, throwing harsh white into my face. The timer at the bottom had reached 001604. Next to it, a red chat icon popped up. I didn't open it, but the message preview slid down on its own. From Ember Watcher. You tried that already. My mouth went dry. I forced my thumb to tap the message. A window opened, black background, white text that wasn't part of any app I recognized. At the top, in small letters, it said, Siltwood Live, subscribers 16. Then comment lines began to appear, each one tagged with my own username. All the same name. All me. Put it out. Follow it. Run. Stay. Ask about the well. Don't mention the well. My vision blurred. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them, a new line had appeared at the bottom, still tagged with my name. But the text was typing itself, letters appearing one by one. Look behind the tree. I didn't want to. Every instinct in my body screamed at me not to. But the compulsion was stronger, like the moment before you touch a sore tooth with your tongue. Slowly, I turned my head toward the tree that had haunted me since I arrived, the one near my original clearing. Even though I had walked away from it, it was right there in front of me, as if the forest had rearranged itself so I could see. The darkness behind it had thickened into a vertical pool of ink, and from that pool a figure was slowly emerging. Tall, too tall, limbs too long, as if someone had grabbed a normal human and stretched them upwards like taffy. Its skin, or what passed for skin, was the color of wet bark, slick and root-veined. His head was wrong, tilted slightly forward, eye sockets glowing with a dim, ember-like light. As it stepped fully out from behind the tree, the firelight from the distant blaze bent toward it, as if being sucked in. Every color in the forest seemed to drain away, leaving only shades of gray and the orange reflection in its eyes. My phone vibrated in my hand. Another message from Ember Watcher. Don't run. It likes that. I stood frozen as the creature's gaze swept over the dead camps, the blackened soil finally landing on me. When our eyes met, a rush of images slammed into my mind. A boy in the 70s lighting a campfire with matches stolen from his father's jacket. A pair of teenagers in the 90s filming each other on a grainy camcorder, daring each other to stay until dawn. A woman in a red raincoat crying quietly as she fed the flames, whispering apologies to no one. Different clothes, different languages, different voices, but the same clearing, the same circle of stones, the same tree. The thing smelled like them, like old smoke trapped in fabric, like scorched hair, like all the fear that had ever soaked into this place. It took another step toward me, and I realized its feet weren't disturbing the ground. It wasn't walking on the forest floor. It was walking on something layered above it, a thin sheet of dark that shimmered with faint moving reflections. Faces rippled across it for a second, screaming, laughing, sleeping, but then the surface smoothed, and it was just empty black again. What do you want? I whispered, though some part of me already knew. The answer wasn't spoken in words. It arrived like the echo of my own voice, bouncing back from a very long tunnel. Stay. Not because it liked me, not because it needed company, but because that was what it did. That was its nature, like gravity or mold or rot. It kept, it gathered, it repeated, and the fire was its doorway. I thought of the woman with the lantern telling me to put it out, of the comment telling me I'd already tried. I forced my eyes away from the creature and looked toward the distant glow of the other fire. It was brighter now, flickering wildly, shapes moving around it. For a heartbeat, I swore I saw myself sitting there, hunched over, holding my phone up as if recording, unaware of the tall shadow standing behind a nearby tree, a loop feeding itself. If I ran for the distant fire, I'd end up there again, starting over. Another version of me added to the tally marks. If I did nothing, the thing in front of me would eventually reach me anyway. I had one hand free, the other clutching the phone like a lifeline. Inside my backpack, I remembered there was a small metal flask of rubbing alcohol for cleaning cuts, and a cheap survival blanket. None of that would help. But there was also something else. A flare. Milo had tossed it in as a joke, saying, if the ghosts like fire so much, give them a real show. An idea sparked in my mind, dangerous and probably stupid. The fire was its anchor, but what if I gave it more than it could handle? Something brighter, harsher. Something that didn't burn clean and slow, but exploded in one overwhelming blaze. Maybe I couldn't put the fire out, but maybe I could make it lose its grip on this particular version of me. I dropped the phone into my pocket and slowly lowered my backpack to the ground, never taking my eyes completely off the creature. It watched me with patient curiosity, head tilting slightly, as if wondering which choice I would make this time. My fingers found the zipper, then the cool metal cylinder of the flare. I pulled it out, feeling its weight, its promise. My thumb hovered over the cap. "You want me to stay?" I whispered, more to myself than to it. "But you never said how." I yanked the cap off the flare and struck it. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then a blinding, searing red light erupted with a hiss, so bright it turned the world into jagged, oversaturated shapes. The creature recoiled, the glow in its eyes flaring white as if in surprise. The distant campfire paled in comparison, its light drowned in the flood of crimson. Shadows spasmed and twisted, like fleeing animals. I held the flare high, arm burning with the effort, and stepped toward the creature instead of away. It stepped back, only a little, but enough. The ground beneath our feet shivered, the layers of accumulated nights and lives rippling like liquid. For the first time since I entered the forest, I heard something besides fire and my own breathing. I heard cracks, splits, like ice breaking on a lake at thaw. The world around us seemed to peel, revealing slivers of other nights underneath each tree. Different arrangements of tents, different positions of the fire, different people. Some looked up, eyes wide, as if sensing me. Others sat motionless, unaware, their faces lit by their own fires. The more I stared, the more I saw that every version of the clearing was stacked on top of every other, all happening at once, with the creature standing in the middle like a nail driven through a shuffled deck of cards. I screamed, though I don't remember deciding to. The sound came out raw and terrified, and I rammed the burning flare into the nearest circle of blackened stones, on the spot where my original fire had been, where all the other fires seemed to intersect. The moment the flare touched the ash, the forest inhaled. Every flame in every version of the clearing flared high at once, towering columns of fire punching upward into the night. The creature let out a sound. Not a roar, not a scream, but something like a grinding echo of all the voices I'd heard layered together. The ground buckled, time slipped. For a few wild, spinning seconds, I was standing in every night at once. The boy in the 70s, the teens in the 90s, the woman in the red raincoat, the version of me who had already failed, the version who had already given up, the one who had run, the one who had knelt, the one who had laughed at the last second in total denial. We were all there, all aware, all staring at the same flare jammed into the same circle of stones, and then, like a rubber band snapping, we weren't. I woke up on the side of the logging road, lying on my back, the sky above me pale with the first hint of dawn. The horseshoe tree stood a few meters away. My backpack was beside me, half open, its contents spilled out. The flare was gone. My phone lay face down on the gravel. Every muscle in my body ached like I'd been running for hours. My throat felt raw. My clothes smelled like smoke. When I picked up the phone, it was warm, almost hot. The screen lit up instantly. Time, 6:42. Date, the same day I'd left for the forest. No missed calls, no messages, no evidence of any live stream. The video files were gone. Every trace of my night in Siltwood had been wiped clean. Except for one thing. In my gallery there was a single new folder titled Siltwood. Inside there was just one image, no metadata, no timestamp. It showed a clearing in a forest at night, a campfire burning bright in the center. Whoever had taken the picture had stood just outside the circle of light, near the edge of the trees. In the foreground, slightly off-center, there was a figure sitting on a rolled sleeping bag, holding a phone up as if streaming, face lit orange by the flames. Me. And behind me, half hidden behind a thick tree trunk, was a tall, thin shadow with glowing eyes, watching patiently. At the bottom of the image, in small white text, was a single line, "Stream will resume shortly." I wanted to delete it, I really did, but my thumb hovered over the trash icon and refused to press down, as if the muscles wouldn't obey. Finally, I locked the phone, shoved it deep into my pocket, and stumbled back toward town, the early morning birdsong sounding thin and distant. I told everyone the trip was a bust, that my equipment failed, that there was nothing to upload. Milo joked that the real horror was wasting gas money for nothing. I laughed weakly and agreed. We never did another episode of the podcast. I tried to move on. I stopped going near the forest. I avoided campfires, even little ones in metal pits on patios. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the phone is on my nightstand, the screen lights up by itself. For just a second, long enough to show a notification I can never properly read, only feel. Something from an app that doesn't exist. A message from a username I don't recognize, Amber Watcher, and in the reflection on the black glass just behind my own tired face, I sometimes think I see a faint orange glow, a fire starting somewhere among very tall trees. The last time it happened, I finally grabbed the phone and unlocked it before the notification could disappear. The screen went white and then black. In the middle, in small letters, appeared a single question. Lighted again. 2 buttons faded into view beneath it. Yes and no. My thumb hovered in the middle, shaking. Because here's the worst part, the thing that keeps me awake. I don't know how many times I've already answered that question. I don't know if I am at the start of my story or somewhere in the middle. All I know is that in a forest not far from here, there's a clearing surrounded by trees marked with tally scratches, and sometimes, when the night is clear and the moon looks just a little too small, a fire appears there on its own and burns without smoke. If you ever see it, if you ever hear laughter and crackling where there should be only wind and branches, don't follow it. Don't try to stream it. Don't strike a match. Because the forest of Siltwood doesn't care if you believe in myths or not. It only cares about one thing, and it's always hungry for another night.